Hey guys, this is Sports with Dylan. Mayok has been fired as the Raiders' general manager. Now, I'd like to start off by saying I am so happy the fact that they made the playoffs doesn't impact this decision. Because let's face it, he was a terrible general manager, specifically in the drafting process. Like, over and over and over, he couldn't get these picks right. He'd always stretch for picks when he easily could have traded down. So I'm very glad that they fired him. This will help the team a lot. I'll get into that later. But first of all, here are some of the examples of how bad at drafting he is. He, in the 2019 NFL Draft, had 3 first-round picks, including number 4 overall. And for some reason, he decided to waste number 4 overall on Clyde Farrell. He's probably the only pick on this list that was seen as a first-round pick. But he was not supposed to be 4 overall. He was mid-rounder, not like a mid-first rounder. Not number 4 overall. There were so many good prospects. Devin White and Josh Allen, the defensive player, are just 2 very good examples of players who have been so much better than him and were expected to be drafted higher as well. I don't understand why they drafted Clyde Farrell. Now, later that round, they drafted Josh Jacobs. And out of all the picks I'm going to name here, he's been the most productive. Not to say that it's still not the best pick. Because, running backs in the first round always isn't the best choice. And given how long it took a running back to be drafted after Jacobs, they could have easily waited till the second round to draft him. Even if they really wanted Jacobs, they could have traded up in the second round. It's not like there was high demand for a running back. So I still don't get, they could have done better things with that pick. And then, with their last pick in the first round, they drafted Jonathan Abram, who, again, was seen as a stretch second or third rounder at best, and he's also not panned out for them, just like Clyde Farrell. Neither of them have been good. Neither have been terrible, not the worst in their draft, but neither have been good. Then, in the 2020 NFL Draft, 2 picks, they chose to draft Henry Ruggs, 11 overall. Now, this was probably seen at the time as the best valued pick on the list. Because it was neck and neck between CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, and Henry Ruggs of who is the best receiver. Now, in my opinion, it would have been CeeDee Lamb, then Jerry Jeudy. But it was still close. It wasn't seen as a huge stretch. He was thought as an early first rounder, early to mid, and that's where they took him. So, it wasn't bad. Now, later, this past year, he may have been drunk driving and crashed into a car and killed the person in that car, so he got released. He was having a good 2020 season, but now he's out of the league and is unlikely to ever return because he's going to jail. Now, Damon Arnett, later that round, was seen as a stretch again. He was seen as a second-round pick. There are better picks behind him. And yet, he also did not pan out. Now, not only, unlike Clyde Farrell and Jonathan Abram, did he not pan out, but he went the Henry Ruggs way. Except he wasn't drunk driving and crashed into a car and killed somebody. He just threatened people with guns. Yeah. you can see where I'm going. Now, for some reason, a couple weeks ago, he was signed to Miami's practice squad. Don't ask me what they're thinking. I would not want that kind of person on my roster. But that's what happened. I'm still surprised about it, but yeah, he didn't pan out for me either, as we can see. Now, in the 2021 NFL Draft, they drafted Alex Leatherwood, number 16 overall. And again, what are they thinking? I mean, seriously. He was seen as a early second rounder. Like a second rounder. Mid-second rounder, I guess. And yet, they drafted him so early. And he has not only been not good, but not the worst. He has been the worst. Like, out of all the rookies drafted in the first round, I would say he's been the worst. Aside from, like, Caleb Farley, who played 2 games. Besides that, one exception, I would say he has been the absolute worst in that class. He's surrendered so many pressures and had so many penalties. It's just been awful. Now, the Raiders drafted him because they released 3 offensive linemen early that season. Gabe Jackson, Rodney Hudson, and Trent Brown. Now, people constantly complain about this. Now, unlike all those people, I kind of see where the GM was coming from. They're expensive, they were old. It makes sense to release them. But all 3? I mean, I would have released one of them. All of them were playing well, but none amazing. So I would have released one of them, maybe 2, but not all 3, because you can't just completely tear down your offensive line and then have no plan to rebuild in one offseason. So, Rodney Hudson, the oldest of the 3, 32, has been phenomenal this season with the Cardinals now. Gabe Jackson's been okay. Seattle offensive line just hasn't worked out. Their whole team hasn't worked out. I'm a Seahawks fan. It's just sad. And then Trent Brown's been really good again. So, I wouldn't have released all 3 is what my thinking is. Then they could have drafted a defensive lineman or a linebacker, which are the positions they really needed. Now, they did manage to get a good defensive line this year. Max Crosby's been playing great. He was a 4th rounder, and he's been better than every other Raiders pick in his draft. And they also signed Yannick Ngakoue, who's been good as well. But I still don't get it. Like, he just stretches so far. If he's gonna take that player, I get you might love a player. Okay. But then trade down for them. Then he gets more draft capital to draft more players. But also, it just makes more sense. Or, in the 2019's case, you have 3 picks. So, you could select Clyde Farrell with one of your later picks. He would have been around when they're selecting Josh Jacobs or Jonathan Abram. In which case, they could have selected someone like Josh Allen or Devin White earlier. So, I don't get it, honestly. Now, they've also been bad at keeping their star players they drafted. Did you know the Raiders drafted Khalil Mack? Yep. And he has been great. And he was great in Las Vegas. It was Oakland at the time. But he was great in Oakland. But then, they decided to trade him. Because I don't know why, honestly. And he's been even better with the Bears. So yes, they got multiple picks. It wasn't the worst trade in history. But I still don't understand why they did it. They're a contender for the playoffs. A couple more pieces and maybe even a Super Bowl contender. And yet, for some reason, they kept on trading their good players. Amari Cooper, again, drafted by the Raiders. Then traded to the Cowboys for no particular reason. And again, both these players, they've wasted so many picks on the defense because they trade Khalil Mack. And they wasted the Henry Ruggs pick because they traded Amari Cooper. Imagine the Raiders today if they still had Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper. They would be great. Plus, they would have been able to spend more picks on their defense. Instead of drafting Henry Ruggs. People like that. They could have drafted better players. That team could be great if it wasn't for Mike Mayok screwing the whole thing up. Now, I would argue that everyone won in this situation. The Raiders, maybe not Mike Mayock, but the only person that really didn't win, besides picks that wanted to be drafted earlier than the 3rd round, is Rick Bisaccia. I kind of feel bad for him. He did well with the Raiders, but I haven't paid too much attention, but it's hard to tell if it's him or if it's just the team that went on a roll after they had, like, John Gruden quit, but really he's almost just fired. And then they had to release Henry Ruggs and Damon Arnett. So, was it that he was amazing, or the team just was mad? Because they've had this. They wanted to prove that they could still be a good team. And I don't know, but Rick Bisaccia did lead them to 10 wins. So, honestly, he kind of does deserve the head coaching job. And it's possible he still gets it. The new GM could come in and go, hey, this guy's been great. I'm going to hire him. Or at least interview him. I hope he gets a shot as their next coach. Because he deserves it. Thanks for watching.